Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lifeonaire Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Lifeonaire Show, we help people make more, work less, and create lives and businesses they what, Peter?
They love.
That's right. They love. Dude, so we don't have a guest today. So this means you and I are going to have a fireside chat about marketing. Dude, I love marketing. And this is, marketing is I think the yin and the yang to sales. And you need both in a business. Very few people actually know or participate in marketing. And so let's give people some nuggets here. Like, let's really dive into marketing and like give some real value here so people can apply this stuff to their business.
Well, this is one of my favorite topics because my business was all about marketing when I was helping other people, which, by the way, you said you don't have a guest. You do have a guest right here, over here, moi.
You're not only the guest, you're the co-host as well. Peter's filling two roles today.
I'll speak in two different languages or in two different ways. So you can one be like, so Peter, what do you think about that? We can do
Polish or Polish with an American accent.
That's right. That would be, Southern accent. So all y'all need to do marketing. Well, that doesn't work. All right. I just insulted a whole bunch of people probably. All right. So listen, marketing. One of the things that I think people are in our marketplace, because there is, I think, two different ways to do marketing in general way is the one with the small business way, and the other one is the big corporations way. The big corporations way do what's called the branding marketing. Like Coca-Cola will do some branding marketing. So they'll put Coca-Cola, so when you are thinking about soft drink, they want you to think Coca-Cola, right? But for us small business owners, what we need to do and we need to focus on because of the budget that we have, the not enough money that we have, like the big corporate guys, is direct response marketing. What direct response marketing is that you literally, whatever you put out there, any kind of marketing piece, any kind of, post or direct mail piece, anything that you put out there, you want some kind of a response from them, direct response that that this piece has giving you some kind of a result, whether it's a phone call, whether it's somebody going to your website, whether it's somebody signing up for your list, whether it's, buying your product, might be, but you need to have some kind of direct response because of the amount of money. So that's what we're going to be talking about this particular episode is the direct response marketing stuff. Okay.
So let's slow down though for a second and tell people why they don't want to just focus on branding and just general. Listen, brand awareness is important, but it's usually not important until you have money in your business and you're keeping the lights on and making a profit. And it has its place in large businesses, but for the smaller business, what you're saying is really important because how are you going to really, it's very difficult to measure ROI on branding marketing. And at some point you have a marketing budget and you kind of graduate a little bit, which that's even a discussion as to whether or not that's a wise move or it's just a traditional move. And so that's why it occurs rather than actually results-based decisions. But, it has its place, but for us, we really need to focus on the call to action and the marketing that has people do something related to a purchase of your product or service. So let's talk about that, man. Like, what does that look like?
Well, and that's an important thing to really get down to because of the fact that I see so many small businesses try to get, people to do stuff, but they do it in that branding type of marketing. I don't know if you ever received a Valpak. I don't know if you guys have Valpak down south.
Yeah.
So it's basically the mailers that come into you, right?
Big, and goes right to the trash.
Pull those things out, and on it says, welcome to ABC Roofing. We're the best roofer in town. Right. And it's like, all right, well, what am I supposed to do with that? And they're doing branding marketing without really knowing it, trying to get something for people to do them. So direct response marketing, you have to be very, it's really important for you to focus on those things. And what I mean by that is one, you need to figure out who your exact customer is. That is one of the most important pieces when it comes to direct marketing is figure out who is your perfect client. And I think this is one of those topics that we should really talk about in this episode, because if you just figure out who your perfect client is, you'll be so far ahead of everybody else in your marketing that you'll be really surprised how it's going to start responding. And the thing is that happens for a lot of people is that they think they need to cast a wider net, right? Leaving people out of my marketing, or if I focus on that perfect client, that's not the case actually.
So let's talk about that, man. Like, so this is really important because, I remember recently hearing Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer talk about your target audience, that your prospect, that is 50% of the success you will have in your marketing. And now, and let's talk about that. Like in your marketing, you have your person, you have to know what media you're going to use. You have to talk about the messaging, the call to action, the specific copy you're going to do, and all of those things combined are 50% of it. The other 50 is choosing the right person to market to, making sure this is the exact best person for your product or service. And this isn't just important from a perspective of it's important from so many different areas. It's not just important from a perspective of hey, this is the best match of the person I can help, but your marketing costs are going to be way less expensive because you're targeting a specific niche. I mean, could you imagine how expensive it's going to be to try to market to everybody? Plus, you're not going to resonate with everybody. You gotta make sure you can solve their problem. You gotta get in. You have to be. Ideally, you're in your prospect's head already. Like this is a problem that you know how to solve because you probably ideally even had it at one point.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that really starts to, like you said, get in their head, because once they feel like you're in their head, like you're literally sitting next to them, all of a sudden they are going to respond to your marketing. They're like, hey, this guy understands me. This person understands me. Because think about this, every single one of your clients, whoever comes to your place of business, buys your products, buys your service, whether you're a real estate guy or whatever, all they're thinking about is, what am I going to get out of this? What's in it for me? How is this going to help me? How is it going to solve my problem that I have? And sometimes they don't really know what their problem is. So you really got to get to know who that client is. So how do you do that? Well, one of the things that I tell my students is literally sit down and write out on a piece of paper, start creating your perfect client. Like write out the entire day. What does the day look like? What do they do when they wake up? What do they, look like? What do they, how do they dress? Where do they go shopping? What do they worry about? What's keeping them up at night? What are they thinking about constantly, right? What's their conversations like? Where do they go? Where do they hang out? And it seems like it's a lot of work and it's a lot of what's the point of that? But once you start creating that perfect client, not only from the demographics point of view, they're a 4-year-old male who lives in such and such a town, and he has a wife and 2 kids and a dog and a white picket fence. And what he does in the morning, he gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the job. And he hates getting up in the morning because he's tired of it. He's been doing it for the last 20 years.
I get where you're going with this. But I think one other way to do it is, I don't think that's one approach. Another approach I think that is valid is for businesses that have, because here's the thing that I've seen is I've seen businesses think that their target market is going to be X, and then it turns out to be Y when they actually start getting people in. And so I think another way to do this is to, if you already have an existing business, go back historically and look at the people who have bought from you. What are the similarities? What are the trends? Where are the common factors that you can be like, hey, you know what? Gosh, I thought that I was marketing to this, but it's 28-year-old to 30-year-old women that are most appealing to, are most of my customers, or the easiest customers to work with. And I get it. As a business owner, this can be really scary, man, because you, especially if you're not super profitable yet, you can be like, well, I need money from everybody. Anybody can use my service. Maybe you epoxy garage floors. So for instance, we're going to epoxy our garage floor. And so my wife did the research on this. And those people might think that everybody could use an epoxy garage floor, but that's not true. They are probably looking for, if they're smart, they're marketing and speaking to a very specific subset of people. And so as a business owner, you get over the fear of, because I think it's a lot of fear of going narrow and going deep. And most people want to go broad and superficial, but I don't think that's the right way to go in most cases.
Well, so we're talking about the same things just from 2 different perspectives, because one, I'm talking about someone who's starting up their own business in almost a new way. and they don't have any history of clients. So that's how they create their client. You're talking about from the person who has got some business, who got some clients, and they can go and look at, okay, who are my best clients? Who were they came in there? So once you start figuring out, here's why are you doing that? Well, one of the reasons why you're doing this approach, you start looking at that past clients that were the best, or you start writing out the perfect client, you start seeing, the common trend. You start seeing where they hang out with. The guy who, let's say epoxy flooring, what does he, maybe there are some commonalities with these people. Maybe their last name ends up with SKI all the time. I don't know.
Well, yeah, right. And so here's the thing too, though, is like your ideal clients, you want an easy way to, there's a couple things. Number one, you want an easy way to reach them. And so you're looking for population similarities that make it easy to target these people. And so, because if they're all over the place, it's gonna be hard for you to do. And so for instance, if there's a Facebook group for whatever, right? Elena is in this Raleigh moms group, and there's a lot of chatter there of stuff for your house and schools and stuff like that. And so there's a population already assembled of potential clients that would be this would appeal to. And the other thing is like the other thing you got to think of is, to your point of who you want to work with, I think there's some characteristics and traits that are universal for all business owners. Let's say that they are still working on their ideal customer profile. I think the one universal trait that all businesses need to consider is, ideally you're finding somebody who's already ready to make a decision. And who's closest to the sale. Like that's one thing that, like, ideally, if you had two customers, two prospects, one of them said they're going to ready to buy today, and the next one's ready to buy in a month, go for the one who's going to be, purchasing sooner. If you, maybe someone does, you mentioned before, someone maybe doesn't even know they have a problem. Well, I'd say go for the customer or the prospect that knows they have a problem and who's ready and who wants to solve it. Yeah. And who has the money to solve it. I mean, you may have an awesome product or service, but it's not affordable to everybody, and not everybody will pay for it. Even if they have the problem, they're not willing to pay for it. So you got to find that as well. Right.
And that at what point in the sales process they're at, I think that's important, because you're going to find that when you start writing out this client, once because that's when you're going to really enter their mind, when you put out those marketing pieces, when you put out this message, because when they are about to buy, you can literally say, are you ready to buy XYZ? And they're like, yeah, I am. Right. But if you enter their mind where, they are just in the researching phase and they're kind of thinking about it, or whatever the case may be, and you say, are you ready to buy XYZ? They're like, no. Right. And when it comes to the sales, it's going to be hard for you to convert those person, because they're in the frame of mind of like, not yet. I'm not there yet. Right. So that is so important to start looking from that perspective. Another way that just popped into my head, when you can start really looking at who the client is start asking the people who, why they like doing business with you. If you have clients, start interviewing your clients, the people that you've done business with. Really talk to them. Like, why'd you come to me? Why'd you do the business with me? Why'd you sell me your house? Right? When you're going maybe at the closing table, when you're a real estate guy. And start asking these people, like, why me? Why not somebody else? Those kinds of things. They're going to start telling you why is it that they went with you or not. And that's going to give you so much gold to be able to figure out, okay, how do I talk to my clients? Because if they said, well, you know what? You have, trusting personality. There's something about you that I just trusted, and I felt good being with you. Right. Well, that is something to be able to look at.
Well, that's a point, man. Like, so, you said something there I want to talk about is trust, but one other question that I've heard our buddy Mike Michalowicz use, and he covered this in his book, The Pumpkin Plan, is he says, ask people, like, what are some things that you don't like about the industry, or so something like that, or, and you listen. Like, so for instance, if you're a car salesman, and you can find out what people don't like about the car buying process, you can use that information to make your approach better. Right. And so this is where, like, really listening is really, really important, and getting feedback. Now, you mentioned trust. So this is something, let's talk about trust, man. Like, cause
Well, so hold on. So before we dive into that, you said something really cool. Think about this. Carvana. I don't know if you heard about Carvana.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised that they did that exact research when they started looking at, what don't you like about the car buying process? And people said, I don't like talking to the sales guy.
Slimy salespeople. Prices that I don't know if I got the best price or not.
Right.
Inconsistency, and yeah.
Yeah. And I have to drive around town and go to 50 different dealerships.
Spending hours at the dealers. Yeah.
Look, they solved everything and now they're doing it. They deliver your car to the front door.
Well, man, I saw a salesman. Speaking of that, I was in Myrtle Beach recently, and a billboard had a call to action that said, hey, we're there within 30 minutes or less, or the visit is free. And I'm like, man, they of course they got that from another industry, right? We know that came from Domino's. But think about that. That is a promise that appeals to one of people's pet peeves about services or mechanical contractors. Like, hey, they give you a window. Hey, I'll be there between 10 and 2. Well, great. That's 4 hours of my day. I'm just going to hang out. And so finding those little things gives you that competitive advantage, not only in your business, but in your marketing as well. That's a differentiation factor for you.
Right. So talking about trust. This is one of those things that is really important, because guess what? That starts to talk about, you are talking to people's emotions, to people's benefits, trust and feeling good, right? That's talking about and selling to people's emotions, not what you're going to get, the features. And that's one big fallacy that I see a lot of business owners make too, is that they talk about selling to people's features, to okay, my XYZ is going to do, whatever, like this computer is going to be, it's 20 gigabyte hard drive. You can store all those, I could care less about that. I care about what it's going to do for me. So what I encourage people to, when you start diving deeper into, getting to know how human psychology works, what people are all about, you start figuring out, why is it that people want to do business with you or somebody else? Yeah. Because if you think about it, we're emotional human beings. We make, our choices, decisions based on emotion. And what do?
Justify with logic
later.
So, man,
that's what you need to talk about.
You said something there, and listen, I know we are all over the place with this, but it's a huge topic. And it's awesome, and this is a free flowing conversation. But one thing you said there is it's not the feature, it's the benefit. It's what it can do for you. That's a huge thing. These two questions I've heard used in the past that I picked up, which are super helpful. So if you're trying to convey and come up with your message for your marketing, there's two questions you're going to want to always answer. One is, so that, hey, you mentioned your computer example. This computer has 20 gigs of memory, so that you can make sure you don't miss a single picture or a single memory, or you don't have room for your video of your family reunion or your mother's 70th birthday or whatever. Now, you don't have to actually put the feature in there, but so that is the part that you really want. Like, that's the part you emphasize, is the so that part. So, and that's really important. You can use the word because, why is this important? You got to think through that. And that's what they're really after. The second question is so what? So what is the other question to ask yourself? So when you write a piece of copy and you're crafting your marketing message, I want you to think to yourself as a pessimistic, cynical reader, and have them imagine them saying, so what? So what? Mm-hmm. Why is it why should I care? You've said it before. What's in it for me? So that is that first one. And so what is the second one? Those will be really helpful in crafting your marketing copy.
Yeah. One thing I will say, man, once in a great while, you do say something smart on this podcast.
So that our listeners can benefit and apply it to their own businesses.
Right. No, this is really good, because when you start looking from that perspective, you start to handle the objections. You start to figure out what the people are thinking about and how to dive into that. Think about it this way, like what you just said. So that your hard drive can keep all the memories, so you don't lose it and all that kind of stuff. And you mentioned so your kids' memories are going to be there. Now, if your target audience doesn't have any kids, they're single people, that message doesn't connect. See why it's so important to be able to know who that exact client is for you to be able to target them. So, and those are really two good tips to be able to go and figure out, okay, the message. What else is really important in marketing? Well, speaking to benefits, figuring out the ideal client, and the message. One of the other things that I see a lot of times with the message, and is that we complicate the message. People tend to complicate, like they go way over the beyond, like you just talked about. So what? When you start using that filter of so what, first draft that you write on whatever the message is not probably the one. And you're going to start looking, so what? And maybe you start eliminating, keeping it more simpler, the message, right? And having that call to action that's going to really get them to just to the next step.
Yeah. Let me pause you right there, man. So one thing, when you start writing copy, this is just like when people come to Lifeonaire and they start working on their vision. We tell them, don't filter or edit, just get stuff down on paper. And a lot of it's gonna be junk. A lot of it is not gonna be good, but you'll find that those nuggets within there, you're mining gold here. And the second thing that you said is really, really important is don't confuse your reader or your listener. If you're doing, like, don't give them 5 different calls to action. Say, hey, download a brochure, or come by the store, or give us a call, or we have this renewal program, or we have, this special sale. Like, you're going to, if someone's overwhelmed, they say no. Like, think about how long, dude, I get stuck in this all the time. When I'm given too many choices, I freeze. I'm like, I'm not going to do anything,
Right. And one of the worst things you can do in marketing, give them 2 choices. And also either give them 1, or you give them, let's say, 3 choices, and in a way that actually makes the one choice is the most desirable one, right?
Well, that's a little bit more advanced strategy.
More advanced, but I'm just saying, keep it to one choice.
Keep it simple.
Just next step, the next step, whatever it might be a little. So like if you're sending a marketing piece and you ultimately want them to buy something on your website, just ask them to come to the website and get this free, PDF or whatever it might be, right?
Yep.
That's going to be helpful to them. That's going to help them. It's all about them, constantly all about them. They don't care about who you are at this particular point. They just want to know how it's going to benefit them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. This is, I don't want to go into this. We don't have time for it, but there's a process, and you can do some research on this. It's called the customer life cycle, or it's called like a sales funnel. And basically it's a stepwise process that's different for every business, industry, and niche, and what you're selling and offering. But it's just a sequential alignment of steps that most people follow. And once you know that, where people start to drop off and where you can start to improve and where the bottlenecks are and things like that. That's beyond the scope of marketing right now. We can talk about that maybe on a future podcast. But so keep it simple, a call to action. What else, man? What else we got?
So another thing that I want to point out is that a lot of times people in marketing, what they tend to do is give up way too early in the process. They'll send out one marketing piece, or they'll put out this post on Facebook, or they'll, do it once or twice and they don't get the response that they think they should. Remember, I said they think they should, which most of the time it's not correct. And they said, well, this whole marketing stuff doesn't work. Yeah. And they give up and they stop and they change it. They move to something completely different, or they lose the momentum or whatever it might be. Yep. One of the most important things in marketing, and the one that's the people who are winning in marketing, people who are making things happen, is the people who keep with the consistency of the marketing. Right. They keep putting the content out, and maybe they tweak a little bit here and there. There's one thing at a time, but consistency is going to win over, trying 20,000 different ways of getting people to do something.
So let's talk about that a little bit, man, because this is important. Say someone has a $5,000 marketing budget and they're going to do direct mail. It's just as illustrative purposes. And they decide, hey, I'm going to mail these, 20,000 people, and it's going to be a one shot and hit all these people once. I don't think that's the right approach. Maybe you're going to take a 5,000 person list and mail them 4 times, or, 2,000 person list and mail them 10 times. Like, I don't know exactly what that number is. Like, it's different for every industry, you know, but certainly what we have seen is, and the data says that you need multiple exposures to get that marketing to work. And one of the big reasons why is trust. And I know it sounds crazy, but the more someone is exposed to you and your message, a subconscious relationship is formed, and their impressions start to sink in so that they are familiar with you. You know, the things in life that are most comfortable to us are the things that are familiar to us that we see often. And so when you can constantly show up and be front of mind, as well as build that awareness with the call to action, remember, it's not just branding. I think you're more likely to get the business. And so work within your budget to plan on repeat efforts. Don't just go all out for one contact. I don't think you're gonna be happy. Speaking of that, man, like, what do you think about people? How much money should people put towards marketing? Like, is there any hard and fast rules? Like, I've seen numbers that suggest like 5 to 10% of revenue is a good guideline for putting into a marketing budget. But what do you see?
Well, I think it depends because obviously everybody's business is different and how much money they have and things like that. But you got to look at your business from I think holistic point of view, meaning like the entire business and what the profit margins are, revenue, and all those kinds of things. Because what I find in businesses is when the times are tough, one of the first things that goes out the window is marketing. That's one of the worst things that you can do in your business because people start cutting that out, and that's the first thing that goes out. So I would say that when it comes to the budget of your marketing, you know, look at the budget that's going to get you results.
Yeah.
You know, close enough to what you're looking for. And you start looking from that perspective and working the numbers, right? And see how much I can put in. And that I truly believe that marketing should be one of those departments in companies that gets the most bang for their buck. Like, meaning you put more in that money into that marketing, you know, into that area than you do with some other stuff, because that's what you're going to drive results. That's when you're going to, whether you're not going to have customers in your business or not. So that is so important for you to be able to do that. Now, here is the other aspect of the marketing thing is that what happens a lot of times when it comes to, especially at the first stages of their business growth and the marketing, things like that.
Let me pause you there 1 second. I got to tell you the story is hilarious. You're talking about cutting costs. So Scott and Clayton, these are two guys who were founded Infusionsoft, now known as Keep. That's the software Lifeonaire uses for their CRM. Mm-hmm. I was listening to these guys talk, and during the early years of the business, like it was in the red. They were struggling. They were not making the money they wanted. They were working around the clock. Like, this thing was like flailing. They were ready to give up, and they're trying to cut expenses, and they look at their profit and loss statement, and on there they had Mark, and Clay goes, "Who's Mark?" And and Scott's like, "It's marketing. Like that's our employee. Marketing is an employee for us. We're not going to fire." Now I may have messed up who actually said that and who was surprised, but the story really stuck with me. Is like, even in those times where they were struggling, that was a line item that they were not negotiating. Like, that was in there.
That's what's going to get you out of the hole if you are in the hole.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of those lifebloods that you constantly need to put into the business. Now, with that said, what ends up happening too a lot of times in businesses is, let's say they do the marketing, they're semi-successful, they get some revenue, they get some new customers, and with the profits, whatever's left over at the end of the day, what do? They go and pocket it, or whatever the case may be, right? I would strongly suggest that in those early, you reinvest as much of that money that's coming out of the business back into the marketing, as opposed to taking it out of the business, because that's going to start. It's almost like when we talk about the 3-day Get Live giveaways. You got the 4 stages of financial prosperity, right? What happens in stage 2 is you start, meeting your basic needs. In stage 3, you have excess cash. And now it's like, what do you do with that excess cash? Do you go and buy the Lambo? Or do you go and buy an asset that's going to help you get out of that hole, right? That's going to reinvest into your future. And I think same thing, it's aligning with the marketing. you get to that stage 3 of this marketing funnel kind of a thing. And you got to take that excess cash and you got to reinvest into the business.
Yeah.
Reinvest it into the business.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, it's totally true, man. And I mean, even, Lifeonaire, for instance, we paid to set up a booth at the National RIA convention because one of the places that Lifeonaire speaks a lot to is groups of real estate investors and business owners. And this gets us in front of them and we have the opportunity to connect with them. I'm going to make sure we have a call to action. I'm going to provide get a real simple kind of set up for them to know what to do and how to work with us. And gosh, dude, we've been speaking to groups for 14, 15 years now, and we still market. And so it doesn't stop. It has to continue.
Has to continue. Are you going to be there?
I am. Yeah. Ooh. And yeah,
that might actually fail then if you're going to be in the face of it.
Right. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. But listen, you got to look at like what we just talked about, like you just mentioned. We know in Lifeonaire, we know that this is what resonates with people, these types of groups. The people, in real estate market, we have a lot of real estate investors. Well, doesn't mean that we have other people in there, but
right. And so that's a good point though. Like, so this is a perfect example of like how, so Lifeonaire, like, listen, I believe that everybody in this entire world could benefit from Lifeonaire. Like in my heart, I believe that we have the solution for problems all over the world, all kinds of different people, backgrounds, upbringings, whatever. But the truth is we can't reach all of those people effectively. And especially economically. And so you have to ask like, and so Lifeonaire, for instance, yeah, we have students that have jobs. I would also say though, that most of those people, if they have a job, they want to leave it and go into business for themselves, whether a small business owner or a real estate investor. And so we help them do that. And so this is where Lifeonaire, I think our better target prospect, someone who can really benefit from us, is the person who either has they already have a business, or they're an investor already and they are not getting the results they want. So we can help them do that. Or it's somebody who has a job and wants to make the jump, or it's somebody who just made the jump into real estate or business and they don't really know what they're doing. And they want to start off right from the start rather than make all these mistakes and then get hurt and struggle. And so we've narrowed our niche to those people who we can help.
Right. And if you think about even Lifeonaire book, the people who are in the Lifeonaire book, how many times have we heard, me and you, of people coming into Lifeonaire, Lifeonaire events or whatever it might be, and say, listen, I read the book and it totally resonated with me. It's like,
they're like, were you following me around? Like, I feel like you guys were like shadowing me. This is my life story.
Right. And that's what happens when you start to get to know who your client is, who is it that you want to help, because that's when you're going to rise above the water, above everybody else, to be able to go and do this. And then I have one more tip. I think it's really important to say, and you're not going to like it.
I haven't liked anything you said today anyway, so that's fine.
Okay, well then it doesn't matter as long as they like it. So do not use big words in marketing.
All right. I feel a little called out right here, Peter.
Yes. No, I'm serious, because it's like we said earlier, confused mind says no, right? If you start using big words,
hold on. I got to say this. So one of our previous episodes recently, we had a challenge to figure out a word that I said in the podcast, and Stu Grazer posted it in our Lifeonaire closed Facebook group, our private group. If you're not in there, by the way, little plug, get in there. And so he got it, man. That was awesome. So yes, but that was not a word. And by the word, the word was calipigian, and you would not use that in your marketing. That would not be a good marketing word.
No. And when I found out what that word actually means, do you ever heard of a thing called forehead slap? Yeah, that was me. But so what's Stu getting? You're getting a Roots Chris steak.
He's gonna get a good. Yeah, I said I'd give him a surprise, so we're gonna get him something good.
All right, but listen. You got to keep it simple, like we mentioned earlier, and as far as the words, keep it like you're talking to an 8th grader. I used to, when I would write marketing piece, my kids were young, I would ask one of my kids to actually read that piece and, see if it's clear to them. And if it's clear to them what they need to do. Like if I have them asked to go on to this particular website, I would have the kid go and actually do it to see if he can actually do that. Is the URL easy to remember? If you have a, very difficult word in your URL, people are going to make mistakes. They're not going to arrive there. When they show up at that website.
Yeah, dude, that's a total filtering. Like, so for instance, you would never say something like, are you interested in acquiring single family residential homes for the purposes of financial, reward? No, you'd say, are you interested in buying some houses and making some money? Like, break it down, make it simple. Any multiple syllable word you have or anything like that. Don't use the word acquire, right? Like, or don't sound smart. You don't speak and you don't write to impress people. You're doing it to express something to them so that it lands. And by the way, here's a little secret. Big words will trigger the intellectual side of your customer. Okay. But not the emotional side, because they're processing from an intellectual perspective. But when you use simple words, it's easier to tap into those emotions. And so you're speaking to their emotions a lot better with smaller words as well.
Right. Well, one caveat we'll have to that is that sometimes you can go ahead and use depending what type of industry industry words, like in real estate investing. I've seen the marketing pieces who are very successful people talking about flipping, and wholesaling, and sub to, or whatever the case may be. But if you talk to a regular person out on the street and you say wholesaling, they're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Right? Well, so sometimes the industry terms are okay, but they're not the big words.
So here's a little trick I learned from Russell Brunson. He was doing some marketing for ketones. Now, if you don't know what ketones are, it's these. Your body will start to burn ketones instead of carbohydrates. And it's this long biochemical process to produce ketones. And it's hard to explain. You're not going to start talking about molecules. And so what he says is like, hey, if you're on ketones, it's kind of like having a million motivational speakers running through your body. That's what it feels like to be on ketones. And so he calls it a kind of like segment that allows you to bridge technical words with a more simple version of it. I mean, you even said a second ago, caveat. Well, not everybody knows what caveat is. Say an exception could be, you know what I mean? Like, so something like that.
Oh, so I used the big word. Well,
there you go, man. Yeah. This.
No, but listen to your example. You just talked about Russell Brunson. When you talk about 1,000 motivational speakers running through your body, I'm like, ooh, I want that.
Yeah. That was a great one. He did
I would like that. Bring it on. Well, how do I get that?
Yep.
And then you just pop this pill or whatever it was. I don't know what it was, but drink the juice or whatever it might be, and you're gonna get those guys running through your body.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that's when you start speaking to the audience.
Totally, man. So I think we got a couple more minutes here. One last thing I'd say is we haven't talked much about the medium. So
medium. So what is medium?
The medium is, what method are you using to communicate with your prospects? Is it Facebook ads? Is it Google pay-per-click? Is it direct mail? Is it radio ads? Is it television slots? Is it, banner ads on the websites? Like how are you reaching them? Is it podcasts? Like, how are you reaching your people? Now, I get this question all the time, is like, well, there's so many different ways to do this. And we talk about this as a business builder workshop as well. And my typical advice is like, listen, just start off with at the most 1 to 2, maybe 3 at the very, very, very most, and get good at those. The best selections usually revolve around what we talked earlier. Where are your people congregating? How are they digesting information? Are they reading, the Robb Report magazine and they're looking at yachts and fancy cars, or are they reading People magazine? Do they not look at magazines at all? Or are they looking at YouTube videos all day? How are you going to reach them? Look at where they're already at.
So it's all depends, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You figure out in the customer profile, when you start writing this out, where they hang out. And that's where you're going to start looking to what's going to resonate with them to send it to them.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would say, like, if you haven't done any marketing yet, don't get overwhelmed. Just start small. Like, just pick one thing. Just pick one thing and just start with that and get going, get familiar with the process, learn the techniques and the strategies, learn how to write better copy, and you'll worry about the other stuff later. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to tweak something you haven't launched. Done is, version done. Wait, how does it go, Peter? Like, done is better than like perfect or whatever it is. Yeah.
something like that. Yes.
Yeah, I just butchered that. But anyway, so yes. And so just get it out there and just start.
That's right. So big takeaway, take action and keep it simple. Figure out your client is. Don't skip over that step because this is the most important step. I find it a lot. People just skip over that. So step one, remember, we talk about in life and we're talking about writing your vision, right? For yourself. Well, in a way, when you do that, like the client, you're kind of writing a vision for that client.
Yeah.
Write that out. Put that out there. What does that look like? Think about this. You can use that same approach we do in the Lifeonaire vision to write out the perfect client because, what are their relationships? What are their needs? What are their wants? What's their spiritual like? What's their, regrets?
All of it.
All those kind of things. If you start applying the same methodology that we use in Lifeonaire vision for your client profile, you'll be able to find out a lot about that particular client.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, I hope all you guys listening have enjoyed this episode. We certainly enjoyed talking about marketing. Dude, we could talk about marketing forever. We spend a lot of time talking about marketing at the Business Builder Workshop, in addition to a bunch of other things. If you want to learn more about that, go to lifeonaire.com and look at our upcoming events. We have that in the Get a Life Getaway, and those together are the 1-2 punch to create a life and business you love. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review, give us a rating, subscribe, share it, do all of the above, as well as if you want to continue this conversation with us, let us know. Come on over to the Facebook group. We got a private Facebook group. It's super secret. All the cool kids are in there. And we would love, just post a question hey, I was listening to the podcast and you guys said this, but I don't understand. Or, hey, what do you guys think about this? And we'll respond. We're in there. This is your chance to get some free interaction and help us help you get the results you're looking for.
Yep, exactly.
All right. See you guys next week.